I want to welcome in former Pennsylvania Senator and senior Newsmax political contributor, also a presidential candidate in 2012, Rick Santorum. Senator, good morning. Great to see you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. The polls, they just keep coming out. We're getting ready for this debate happening next Wednesday. I think the debate is being overblown. Yes, it's very important, but as you know better than almost anyone, there's going to be 10 or 15 of these things before we even get to the nomination and the conventions next August. The latest poll out this morning, Quinnipiac, has got Joe Biden beating Donald Trump by 1 point in the general election. Now, basically, you would say that's neck and neck. Are you surprised, first, that a Republican, Trump or someone else, is not beating Joe Biden if things are, in fact, so bad in this country? And are you surprised that in that poll, only 3% of voters were undecided? Only 3% this far out from the election.
I'm not surprised at that. I mean, you have two figures who are very, very well known, and people have very strong opinions on both. And so it's not surprising that they're undecided. I think people are, unfortunately, increasingly in two camps. We've become a tribal nation in some respects. That we have a Republican tribe and a Democratic tribe, and no one sort of steps outside of that zone. And these two candidates are, as you see, pretty polarizing candidates themselves. So it really, the question is, if this race continues on, is it a race about Donald Trump and all of the legal issues surrounding Donald Trump, or is it a race about Joe Biden and all of the terrible policy decisions that Joe Biden has made? And right now, I think that's both camps sort of look at the other and are voting. I don't think they're necessarily voting for Joe Biden on the Democratic side, and I think a lot of Republicans are voting against Joe Biden and the policies. And right now, there's not really a positive vision that either side is laying out that's going to attract anybody to pull from one side to the other.
Karine Jean-Pierre, and I thought this was fascinating, she was asked about Joe Biden's numbers in battleground states. She was asked a question that I don't think she was expecting on CNN. Take a listen.
You were asking me about the polling. You were asking me why we.
Yeah, I mean, to that, he's underwater in Wisconsin.
Translate.
You're talking about Wisconsin. He's underwater in Wisconsin.
No, I know, and I understand it. But you have to remember, Phil, these are long-term investments, right? These are long-term investments, which Americans are going to start to see. And as you know, Phil, you know this probably better than I. You've covered a couple of administrations at this point. Polling don't tell the whole entire story.
So you could say that CNN's underwater with viewers, by the way, and they're trying to appeal to more viewers in the middle and maybe more conservative viewers with questions like that. But Joe Biden's numbers are down in battleground states. Do you think that makes the rest of the party nervous about Joe Biden as their nominee moving forward?
Well, Rob, you and I have talked about this many times. I think that as Biden's problems increase with the Hunter Biden scandal and his poll numbers and this economy continue to struggle, look, I don't think it's past the Democrats to pull the plug on Joe Biden and try to find someone else. I mean, his numbers are underwater, not just in these swing states, but they're underwater nationwide. And this is a real problem for them. They think they've got their man in Donald Trump and that they can run a campaign in the fall about how corrupt Trump is and how he's indicted or maybe even convicted, and that they can make this the race that they want to run. But that may not be enough. I mean, the fact of the matter is that they've gone so far over, they've overplayed their hands so much on these prosecutions that it may have lost its effect by the time the election rolls around. So I think you're seeing Democrats being very circumspect right now about whether they want to continue down the trail of supporting such an unpopular president.
Yeah, Senator, do you think so? We've had, all this coverage around Hunter Biden and the Comer-Grassley investigations, and then we always get, whether a day later or a couple days later, we get another Trump indictment. So that's been the situation since the spring. Once we get into the fall, do you think that the Trump cases kind of fade from the news a little bit, because it's going to be more challenging? It's easy to cover an indictment and an arraignment. It's a whole different can of worms to actually cover each legal case. And I'll tell you what, people are not paying attention. People, my friends, they hear the headlines, but they're not talking about the details and the minutia like you and I are talking about every week.
No, that's absolutely true. The big question here is whether there's a trial before the election. If there's a trial before the election, and Donald Trump is convicted, I think all bets are off at that point. I mean, I think there's a real concern there for Trump, and I understand his legal team is going to do everything they can to push these trials off till after the election. I think they have a good chance of doing so, certainly in the most recent Georgia case with all those defendants.
Yeah.
But a trial would be the worst possible thing for Donald Trump. And I will say the other thing with respect to the primary, this is the first debate, and I know you said they're making too much of it, but it's really the first chance for a lot of these candidates to get some visibility as to who they are and what their campaign is, because up until now, it's all Trump all the time, all indictments, and no one's getting their message out. So at least it's an opportunity to change the subject for one night.
Yeah, just quickly, anybody you're watching next Wednesday?
Well, you can't help but watch DeSantis, and he's been so criticized for his appearance and his lack of connecting to voters. This is an opportunity for him to show some authentic DeSantis.
Yes. Charismatic Ron.
Yeah.
Senator, we've got to leave it there. Appreciate it. Good to see you.